My earliest memories of Dick. Well, I met him. First time I met him was in Columbus, Ohio, on a triple bill with us, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and Great Southern. And I had already spent some time with his son Dwayne in California when none of us were sober. And I've been sober 17 years, so it feels like an eternity ago, but far from it back then. And we were wild and crazy and never slept and doing the thing. And it was crazy to meet Dickey because he was wilder than all of us, but just, he was a giant, you know? And I remember watching him go up, and it was not lost on me that every note that came out of his hands, I'm like, much like George Jones, I'm like, this dude has created this landscape of, he and Dwayne Allman, the guitar landscape that I exist in came from them. Really, I mean, first and foremost, as much as, I love Rossington, Collins, and Ed King, and Steve Gaines, and Lowell George, and Billy Gibbons. But I think Dwayne and Dickey were that's the first altar we knelt at. And just watching him operate every night. And he was a fierce band leader, taskmaster. I remember thinking, I'm glad I'm not in that band because he is pissed right now. But he's always sweet to me. Just a generous dude with information and talking about the kind of amps they used to play. Or I didn't know him very well, just was only around him a few times.
Were you asking these questions about amps, or was he just offering?
I asked. And I wasn't, even with Billy, I don't like to ask too many questions, It's like, don't be a pest.
Say you're welcome.
Yeah. But the last time I saw Dickey was in Florida. We played with Dwayne and Devin Allman, their band, and Dickey. He was in full grandpa mode. He came out, and I think he was done playing, and he looked happier than I've ever seen him. That was maybe 5 years ago. He just sat on the side of the stage and just was happy to be there, smiling, grinning from ear to ear. I had a mixed bag to choose from because my dad is a bluegrass lover, a guitar player, and there are country musicians that get kind of pulled into that world. Hank Williams, and not really George Jones though. That's a little too honky tonk. But Ernest Tubb and Hank Williams, they're kind of allowed, And then my mom liked the Stones and the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Bob Dylan. And my sister's 4 years older, so she liked what was popular. She liked the rock and roll that was on the radio, Def Leppard and Rat and Van Halen. And so I got into all that, and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. And then a friend of mine, I think I was in the 6th grade, he had Live at the Fillmore East. And it was like, this is different. Like just those first slide licks. It became, okay. And I was just thinking about it the other day, like so much of the stuff that Dickey wrote, Elizabeth Reed and Blue Sky and Ramblin' Man and even Hot Lana and La Brea in A minor, Jessica. That's what you learn. When you're a kid from Georgia with a guitar, that's what you learn. Those are standards. And Dwayne, his son, do you know Dwayne? Well, he looks like Dickey just spit him out. I mean, it's amazing how much he looks like. But he has that feel in his hands. And it's not a mimicry thing. He got it. It's genetic, When you hear him play, you're like, wow, okay. It's in his skin.
A lot of that stuff Dickey is playing, this might be common knowledge out there to everyone, but to me, a lot of that stuff that Dickey was playing sounds like it could be fiddle lines in Bob Wills songs.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he had a big love of Western swing.
Totally. And we never talked about that. In fact, I just was talking to Dwayne. We just played a show with him down in Florida. And he said, my dad would have loved to sit and talk about that and about fingerpicking because that was his stuff. That's where he came from. We never got to do that, but Yeah, he loved that first solo record he made, the Richard Forrest Betts Highway Call. It's full of that.
I saw a picture of you, Warren Haynes, maybe Steve Lukather, and Billy Gibbons. What's the story behind that? Where were you? There was another person there who I didn't know who it was. But
That was a guitar event in San Diego, California. It was we were the headline act on a festival there, and it was put together. I think it was called Guitar Greats Salute America, which I'm not folding myself into that idea of being great, but I was honored to be there. It was my first time meeting Steve Lukather, who is amazing, hilarious human, and obviously a great player. We were each going to get up and do a couple songs. George Thorogood was there. Nancy Wilson was there. Warren, Steve Lukather, of course, Billy. I forget who else. Great band. Anyway, they were like, what song would you like to do? And we had taken a couple of months off, and I had just written this new song called Hey Delilah, and I was really excited about it. And I told Billy and the band leader, I was like, I want to do this song. And all I had was a garage band demo of it. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I sent it to the band and to Billy and to Lukather, and they all loved it, and that's what we did. And the dudes in my band are like, what song is this? And I was like, well, I just wrote it yesterday. So the first time I ever played it in front of people was with them. And then we all got up and did, I think we did I Thank You with Billy. But, man, that was a fantastic day. Just listening to Warren and Billy and Lukather tell stories. That was a great fly on the wall day.
one of the early memories of mine is back before YouTube and all of that. My buddies and somebody would get a VHS tape.
Yeah.
Of somebody playing something, and somebody had this instructional tape of Steve Lukather,
Yeah.
and he's playing the lead to Hold the Line, Rosanna, and we're just like, what in the heck? And you're watching people doing this thing, and
Yeah.
it sounds like I'd never really heard anything like that.
Yeah.
It made quite the impression on a bunch of knuckleheads in rural Indiana.
Totally. I love it now that I've seen him in interviews just in the past year where he's like shedding a lot of light on the sessions, the Thriller sessions when Eddie Van Halen came in and played on it, who he knew they were buddies, and that was a favor. I think he's the one that called and was like, will you come play on this record? And Eddie's like, who is it? And he did it for nothing or like a 6-pack or something. But then he also told such an interesting story, and I probably don't have the details correctly here, but the first time that McCartney came to record with Michael Jackson was not very far removed from when John Lennon was murdered. And he said security was really, really, really tight. And I thought, whoa, that's heavy to think about. Because McCartney was just like, I got to take care of it. I got to take good care. I mean, I never would have thought about that. It's like, anyway, his, and it was no knock on McCartney. It was just like, that was a heavy time.